England is shattering. Two rival families, Lancaster and York, are locked in a violent, bloody power struggle known as the Wars of the Roses. At the center of this national collapse is King Henry VI. He wears the physical crown, but as you can see in this historical portrait, his gentle expression lacks the ruthless edge required to hold on to it. He has no actual control over his own fractured nation. Hoping to stop the violence, Henry strikes a desperate compromise with his enemies. He agrees to a deal where he will remain king until he dies, but the rival Duke of York's family will inherit the throne immediately after. To buy his own physical safety, Henry has effectively signed away his bloodline. He has disinherited his own son from the English throne. His wife, Queen Margaret, refuses to accept this. Driven by maternal rage and a survival instinct, she rejects the compromise entirely, raises an army in the north, and prepares for war. A weak leader attempting to appease everyone often inadvertently creates a power vacuum that invites chaos. Margaret's northern army launches a devastating surprise attack. She successfully overwhelms the Yorkist forces and captures the Duke of York himself. Margaret mocks York, forces a crude paper crown onto his head, and spikes his severed head on the city gates as a warning to his heirs. But killing York backfires. The execution transfers the feud directly to his sons, Edward and Richard, two men who are drastically more ambitious and ruthless than their father. Edward immediately retaliates. Backed by the immense military and political influence of the Earl of Warwick, a man known as the Kingmaker, Edward crushes the Lancastrian forces and seizes the throne as King Edward IV. Henry VI loses the crown entirely. Deposed and hunted, he is forced to flee into hiding. Violent retaliation in a power vacuum rarely restores order. It only breeds more extreme leaders willing to cross increasingly dark lines to secure control. This map of England shows the immediate aftermath of Edward's victory, with the White Rose of York claiming total territorial control. The assumption is that the Civil War is finally over, but Edward makes a catastrophic political mistake. Prioritizing romance over strategy, he secretly marries this woman, Elizabeth Woodville, a figure from the lower nobility. At the exact moment Edward is secretly marrying Elizabeth, his greatest ally, Warwick, is in France negotiating a vital royal marriage meant to secure Edward's legitimacy. Warwick is humiliated. His political standing is undermined overnight. In response, the Kingmaker immediately switches sides and joins his former enemy, Queen Margaret. Warwick and Margaret combine their forces and launch a massive rebellion. Against all odds, they succeed. They force Edward into exile and physically place Henry VI back on the throne. Even with the crown back on his head, Henry remains a passive symbol. The true power in England now belongs to those willing to manipulate fragile alliances and betray their closest friends. Edward regroups his forces and returns to England from exile, launching a series of deciding battles. Edward systematically dismantles Henry's support. Warwick is killed in combat, and Margaret's forces are defeated on the battlefield. Then comes the final blow. Margaret's son, the single Lancastrian heir Henry originally tried to protect by compromising, is captured and executed. Edward IV reclaims the throne. Henry VI is stripped of his title, separated from his allies, and imprisoned in the Tower of London. Henry spent his life avoiding the violence of the crown. By the end, that passivity cost him his throne, his freedom, and his only son. The story shifts from the loud battlefield to the quiet confines of the Tower of London. Here, we meet Edward's younger brother, Richard, Duke of Gloucester. Richard visits the imprisoned king. Where Henry is passive and gentle, Richard is calculating and manipulative. He is already looking far past the current war. In his final moments, Henry speaks prophetically. He warns of Richard's dangerous nature. And then, Richard murders him in cold blood. This family tree graphic shows the sheer finality of that assassination. It signals the end of the Lancastrian line and the rise of a deeply calculated new political power in England. Henry's story suggests that in the pursuit of power, gentleness often acts as a liability. By failing to command his kingdom, he created a vacuum for a man like Richard to fill. Edward may sit on the throne, but Richard is in the shadows, waiting. He has tasted blood, and he is preparing for his own rise to power in the very next chapter.